Today on Behind the Label, she's the outspoken and proud feminist and fashion icon. She's the mother of 2 children and of one of fashion's most recognizable symbols, the wrap dress. Today, Diane von Furstenberg and the wrap dress are back and better than ever. In 1972, the wrap dress was born, and fashion designer Diane von Furstenberg had arrived in the fashion world. Sophisticated and sexy, the dress's clingy fabric wrapped around a woman's body and tied at the side. The dress took America by storm. More than 5 million sold, and by 1976, Diane von Furstenberg and her dress had become iconic symbols for a generation of women. At the age of 22, Diane married Prince Egon von Furstenberg of Austria, and with no formal design training but an extravagant sense of European style, the outspoken jet-setting princess embarked upon a career in fashion. How did you come up with the idea of a wrap dress? Was it something you wanted to create for yourself?
No, it was a little wrap top. I mean, people have worn wraps. I mean, the wrap is the most traditional form of clothing. I mean, it's kimono, it's toga, it's really a piece of clothing that has no buttons, and that's your wrap. What was different about my wrap is that because it was a jersey fabric, it wasn't loose, it was very tight, and it kind of molded your body and sculpted your body. And, you know, it was more like a ballerina wrap, really. And first it was a top, and then I elongated into a dress, and that was it. This is the little wrap dress. It is a silk jersey. It feels very, very soft, but yet it's very dry, so that when you wrap it, it kind of holds it. The great thing about a wrap is that you just adjust it to your body. You have a high waist, you have a low waist, you just make it wherever you want. You make one bow and the second, and then you could just let it, and you're ready to go.
Why do you think that it's been embraced so much by the young generation of today and as it was in the 70s?
I don't know, because it's a product that makes sense for women, that is flattering, that women, it's like, you know what it is? I think that if I compare myself to other designers, some people give a menu à la carte. You go to a restaurant, you order one. I'm giving a buffet. And what I do is I offer women things that I know will look good on them. But the whole idea is the woman should feel and look good. Because then you feel more confident, and if you're more confident, you're more beautiful, and so on and so on.
In 1997 came the relaunch of the Diane von Furstenberg label and the celebrated return of the wrap dress. That prompted Diane to hire creative director Nathan Gendon to transform the 70s design phenomenon into a modern line of clothing and accessories that reflect her glamorous sense of European style. And now we talk about design and your creative director that you work with,
right?
Nathan Gendon.
So Nathan,
how did you find him? Okay. How did you guys meet?
You know, so it was very important for me and my brand to have a young designer and to have somebody who I could get along with, who I could inspire and who could inspire me. And I needed a creative director, and I found Nathan. He is young and English and talented. And he didn't know much about me when he met me. And it's funny, he came into my office and he liked me because I had books, lots of books. And I liked him because he noticed that I had lots of books. And you know, it's not like an accountant. When you hire a designer, it's a lot with instinct. But what was good is that he was European. We had a lot of the same references. We liked the same thing. And it's been great.
I'm just curious about the collaboration.
My role is to inspire him somehow, but yet at the same time is, you know, he has to do it, and then I don't know. It's not something you could really explain, and but it's nice. It's nice.
It felt right, right? It felt right.
It felt right, and I would say that it feels righter and righter by season after season. We both like everything is all proper, and then there's that ding, you know, the little
We kind of
you
like
know,
that
it's
naughty.
like it's all sweet and then a touch of sour. you know, I think we respect each other very much, and I think that helps a lot.
Do you think a lot? Do you think similarly, or do you come in with different ideas?
Well, he's a man, and I'm a woman,
right,
you know,
right.
so we are two different animals. And he could be I mean, you know, we're not the same generation, so there are differences, but I think that...
I think we understand each other's cultural references.
Right.
I think that's important.
And I also think that, like, you know, if there are... We probably would always stand on the same side of issues.
So, the evolution of the wrap dress, it's come a long way since the 70s, huh?
Oh yeah, the proportions, I mean the proportions and the styling have totally changed. The first season that I came, actually, I found the original wrap dress.
Wow.
Which had this huge skirt. It was really 70s. It was totally right for that time, a couple of years ago. And we did put that back on the line, and it was a bestseller. And you know, but it had a much wider skirt, much more sort of, you know, like Bubba Cool kind of slightly hippie. The wrap dress is such a great way to make a woman look dressed that you tweak it a little bit. But I've always said it's like a white t-shirt or a pair of Levi's. You can't kind of, it's not something that you turn inside out and backwards to get to a better place. You actually just have to tweak it. Like for example, here we just piped it. We've got a little pipe yoke, kind of little cowgirl style. And the wrap dress on the skirt has pockets, so you can put your, so it's a bit more casual. So you put your pockets in, and it's just a little bit more like you could wear it with sneakers. This one here is a bit more special with a little Chinese collar, a little keyhole opening, and then a big satin bow. And this one we've taken lace and put it into the yoke.
Right.
So each season we try and kind of take the wrap dress and take it somewhere that feels appropriate to the mood that we're trying to portray, and also appropriate to the kind of...
Is that fun for you to make it fresh again?
Yeah, it's always like the big... Sometimes it can be the big challenge of the season. It's like, oy vey, the wrap dress, what are we going to do this time? We normally finish the show, spend a little time apart. Diane talks about then we normally meet in Paris as we're choosing fabrics, and we normally talk then about kind of what I'm feeling, what Diane's thinking. I tend to sort of think about a sort of a starting point for each collection, and I tend to normally reference Diane.
The first time was Rebel Princess.
The first show I did was Rebel Princess.
Actually, when he made me the presentation before he came, the one thing he wrote was a Rebel Princess, and I like that actually. That helped.
You know, and I think you know.
Where did that come from, Rebel Princess?
Well,
Hello.
Diane, and also I kind of liked the, you know, I met Diane and I thought she was really inspiring and a little kind of punky without being punky. Like the woman was kind of punky in her attitude and really modern. And I thought that, you know, this is the woman, and so what is the brand? And the brand is not just a wrap dress, it's about the attitude of a woman, which is why we're able to do jewelry and all of those things now. And that Rebel Princess was totally said to me everything that everybody loves about Diane is because it's not how they expect Diane to be. And that's really refreshing, and that's what I really like about Diane. I tend to come up with something, and then Diane and I kind of go backwards and forwards on it, and I'm sort of like, you know, I sort of normally have like 100 ideas of what's right in fashion at the moment to be doing, and then kind of how do we bring that into the world of DVF. So for example, I felt like very strongly last season for fall there was a lot of a hunting mood and a horsey kind of mood, and there was also a slightly sort of dramatic mood. And it was like, how do I bring what I think is happening in fashion into the world of DVF? So we called it Glamazon, and it was the idea of this sort of, you know, Austrian aristocrat like a von Furstenberg riding through the forest, doing her hunting and, you know, fighting her battles. And so, you know, bringing it back into like a world that makes sense in Diane's world.
Let's go back in time a bit. If we could talk about your childhood.
Oh, my childhood,
yes.
wow.
You were born in Belgium.
I was born in Belgium. And the first thing about my childhood is that I did not like to be a child. I had a perfectly nice childhood with a loving father, a very nice mother, and a little brother. But I hated the idea of being a child. I couldn't wait to grow up.
You didn't like to play with toys as a
child?
child?
No, I did not like toys. I did not like dolls. I hated dolls. And I liked books. And my two favorite things is books and make-believe, you know. Sit in front of the mirror and act like a diva.
And you did that starting at what age?
Oh, as far as I can remember.
Now, your parents were a big influence on your life. Your mother was a Holocaust survivor.
Your parents always are a big influence, and it's only when you get much older that you understand. My father adored me. I mean, he worshipped me, and I could do no wrong. And sometimes it was even too much. But I realized that if you have a very loving father, it makes your life with men in the future very easy. You know, you don't question that they can love you. So that's good. And my mother, well, my mother taught me the big lesson that my mother taught me is that fear is not an option. And she always, you know, pushed me ahead and go ahead and don't ever be afraid. And she was a Holocaust survivor when she was in her early 20s. And, but she did survive, so her life was a miracle. My life was a miracle, and so I lived it miraculously.
In 1972, the wrap dress was born and put its creator, Diane von Furstenberg, on the fashion fast track to icon status. Before coming to America, the self-proclaimed diva lived a fairy tale life. At only 22, she married Prince Egon von Furstenberg of Austria and quickly became a darling of the jet set. Now, in 1969, you married an Austrian prince, and you became a princess at 22.
Right.
A fairy tale dream for many, you know, women.
Right.
Was it a fairy tale?
Yes, it was a fairy tale, but I always say that my fairy tale, usually fairy tales end with you marry the prince and live ever, you know, happy ever since after. And my fairy tale started with me marrying the prince. It was just the beginning of my fairy tale.
What brought you to the United States?
We were in our early 20s. I was 22, he was 23. And for us, going to America is like for anybody who comes to America, you know, it's the promised land.
You had your 2 children, you had this great life, you have plenty of money, but you wanted to start your own company.
Well, I started everything when I was 22. I got married, I got pregnant, and I started my business. And I did it all at once.
Why did you want to start a business?
I wanted very much to be on my, to know that I could pay my bills. You know, I wanted to be able to know that I was independent. And in today's world, if you want to be independent, you have to be financially independent. And I didn't want it to be my father or my husband, so I got to work and I became financially independent very quickly.
How was that for you at such a young age to juggle motherhood and being a businesswoman?
You know, people ask me that all the time, and I don't know any alternative. I mean, my children have been around since I was 23, you know. By the time I was 24, I had 2. So they've always been around. And I've always worked, and I tease, but I always say that I could do career and children. I don't know if I could have done career, children, and a husband.
The wrap dress is this huge hit, 5 million are sold, you're on the cover of Newsweek. Were you ready for all the success?
Was I ready for all that?
How did you deal with it?
You know, you don't stop and say, oh, how am I dealing with the success? I mean, you know, you keep on running because you have things to do, and so you don't, and I guess that when you are in it, you don't realize it. Now I realize, oh my God, I was 29, I was on the cover of Newsweek, I was on the cover of Wall Street Journal, but then you don't really realize it. And then you have to, you know, when you get successful so quickly, it's very dangerous because you get saturated, there's all kinds of things, you make bad association, you have the wrong people working with you, so then you have to correct mistakes, and then it's life.
Diane became famous for the wrap dress. Now here we are years later. How do you expand the brand beyond that? Creatively?
Well, I think that what is really ageless about Diane is the spirit, and the spirit of the person and the way she's lived her life and the way that it's kind of je ne regrette rien. A lot of iconic women have had very tragic stories, and you know, it all tends to go wrong in the end. Whereas I think for Diane, she's always tried to not be a victim, and I think that that's really appealing, and I think that that's what makes her really iconic and really right for now.
As a creative director, who is the DVF woman?
She's a woman who's really comfortable with being a woman. She's comfortable with being herself. She's comfortable with being sexy. She always knows when something is wrong and when something is right. But it can sometimes be the most wrong thing, and the way she wears it and the attitude of the woman makes it right. Another thing about the DVF woman is she's always always ready for action. So all of these clothes, I mean, one of the spirit that I always try and put into the clothes is I use a lot of knit, because I think that that is very modern, and I like the idea that you can, you know, this wrap dress is like a real get up and go dress. Diane's a real get up and go woman. Like, part of the brand is get up and go and like be able to move, but always to look appropriate and chic. So this is like a wool jersey dress with like chain mail insertions, and this was the idea with Glamazon, and the idea was this kind of, you know, the warrior woman, but how are we going to do armour in a very modern, very DVF kind of way? And this was kind of how we approached it. And you just pull this on over your head. There is nothing forced about it. I mean, there's a lot of work in it, but there's really nothing very difficult about it.
Do you think two heads are better than one when it comes to putting together this label?
I think I think that
there's a lot of heads.
I think, yeah, in every fashion company, everywhere you go, there may be one name, but there are many, many heads,
and many heads and many hands. You know, it's not just the heads; it's the hands, and it's working together, and you need a dialogue. You know, you need to see. You go one way, and you need to see how it's reflected, and you need to have people who disagree in order to either be sure that what you want is what you want or not. So it's you know, this is a big industry. This is a I mean, we design, you know, we show twice a year, but we have mini collections every month. So it's a lot of product, a lot of colors, a lot of prints, a lot of designs. So, you know, you need people to...
Lots of heads and hands.
Yeah, you need a lot of people.
You were the 70s icon. There were the parties, Studio 54, your fabulous friends. What was that like? Describe that for me.
But, you know, Studio 54 was a tiny percentage of my day. You know, I would wake up, and I lived with my children and my mother, and I would go to work, and I would travel, and I would have dinner with my children, and and then maybe at 11:30, at 12 at night, I would put my cowboy boots, and I would go to Studio 54 for an hour, for 2 hours. But that was a tiny part of my life. It was great. It was the best hangout club in the world.
By the time you were 30, you had 17 licenses, and it just became, your brand became this huge empire.
Right.
It started to go downhill after that, though.
Well, what happened is that my brand saturated, but also because of the wrap dress. And we made too many. I had a partner who did not want to diversify. We made too much of too many of the same thing. And so, and then I signed some licenses that weren't good and so on. So it, you know, and then I sold the whole thing and I left. And that's when it disintegrated.
What were you doing at that time?
I was living in Paris.
And was this a bad time for you, or a
No,
hard
and
time?
then I came back here, and then I realized that I had lost this thing that I had, and it was like a child. I had a son, a daughter, and a brand, and I'd lost my brand, and I suffered from that then.
Feminist icon and fashion legend Diane von Furstenberg has expanded her simple line of dresses to include a comprehensive collection of clothing, cosmetics, and fragrances. She went from the top of fashion's A-list, then fell off the list, and propelled herself back to the top of the fashion world again.
What would you say is your philosophy on how to live your life?
If I have one advice, one big advice that I will tell every woman is, do not be afraid of your own strength. Because women are strong. Genetically, they're very strong. But very often, because of environment, because of education, because of whatever, women are afraid of their own strength, and they pretend they are weak, and they pretend they can't do it. But that is the secret advice for any woman and for any situation, private, mother, business. Do not be afraid of your own strength.
You said you started up with QVC and sold the silk assets line, and I think you were saying I went from a has-been to a pioneer again.
All right, okay. You know, I had lost my business and nobody wanted to talk to me and everyone treated me as a has-been. And I was really upset and I was really suffered. And then one day I discovered this company called QVC, and I went to visit them, and I saw there was Susan Lucci selling shampoos, and she sold so many shampoos in 10 minutes that I said, well, I could do this. And they wanted me to do fashion, and I said, but how can you sell fashion on television? And then overnight, I became, you know, I went from being a has-been to be a pioneer again. And that gave me credibility again. And that made me, that more important, it gave me confidence again. Because I knew that, you know, what I wanted to do for my brand was not sell on television. I wanted to create that spirit of a young woman. But having that success gave me my own confidence again. And 7 years ago, I decided to start again, and to start again with the same dress. Why? Because I had noticed that very young and very hip girls were buying the dress in vintage shops. And so that made me want to do it again.
And what are Nathan's strengths?
Nathan's strength is a combination of a great talent and a great intelligence. It's important to have both, because talent is talent and intelligence is intelligence. But if you somehow you can apply intelligence to talent, then you've got a winner.
How about you, Nathan? What are Diane's strengths?
I'd say Diane's strength is her talent for living, and that's what I think inspires people about her, is that you never really get a sense with Diane that she isn't enjoying life, on it, even when it's not that
Except
enjoyable. That, you know, there isn't something to be drawn from it, and I think that that talent for living is inspirational. With this little corset jacket and the pencil skirt, although, I mean, a lot of people showed these very little 50s suits, this was our take on it. It's a corset jacket, as we were saying earlier about the little bit of naughty, it's actually based off a biker jacket.
Okay.
And it has the rib on the side, so you can really pull this on and off. It functions like a cardigan or like a jacket, and it feels like you've got a sweatshirt on. And this is very, I mean, I think this is a really modern way for women to dress.
When your business slipped away from you, did you think that you were going to ever come back to the fashion world?
When I left the fashion world, I thought it was, yes, for good. But then I realized when I was away from it, that it was really so much part of who I was, you know. My business and my brand was so much part of my identity, because I used me for it and it for me. So it was kind of belong together.
I'm in this office and I'm surrounded by pictures of your family and friends. It's very important to you. What inspires you when you're...
Life inspires me. I mean, you know, life. I love nature, and this is what inspires me. Beauty, and being nice, and hope, look for hope, you know, and build around it.
When you look back, what's the fondest memory you have of
Well,
everything?
the good thing that happened in my life is that I had my children so young. I had so little time of being an adult without having children, so they were always part of me. And it's funny, because now that they are adults and parents themselves, somehow they keep on having a larger and larger part of my life. So they are the most important part of my life.
In February 2001, after 26 years of an on-again, off-again romance, Diane married media mogul Barry Diller. On their wedding day, Barry gave her 26 diamond rings, one for every year they were not married. Today, they split their time among their homes in Los Angeles, Connecticut, and New York.
Now, you're married to Barry Diller, media mogul, and you both enjoy individual success. What are the benefits of, you know, both being successful on your own?
I met Barry, I was 28 years old, and he was 33. And I was very successful then, and he was very successful then, and we were young and, you know, two young tycoons, so to speak. It was fun, and we fell in love, and we lived together for 5 years. It was a big passion. And then I left him. I was too young to settle, and I went around, but he was always there somehow. And then we, you know, we went back to each other again, and then 2 years ago we married, and we know each other so well, and we are so much part of each other's life. I don't see him the way the rest of the world sees him. You never see people, you know, when you're intimate with people, you never see them the way other people see him. So I don't see him the big, scary Barry Diller. For me, he is very sweet Barry Diller.
Why did you decide to open up shop downtown as opposed to near 7th Avenue, near the whole hubbub of the garment district?
I don't know. It's just one of those things that just happened, and everybody thought I was crazy, and the next thing you know, it's the hippest part of town.
Yep.
People say, who would come here? You know, I mean, it was like so far out. I said, well, you know what, let's make it a destination place. And because I had a big theater space, I decided to create this theater. It was just an idea.
What advice would you give to young designers who want to run a business or start up?
Oh,
because you've seen it all, done it all.
Well, my best advice is say, if you believe it, go for it, do it, and, you know, follow your instinct, work very hard at it, focus, listen to everybody, and follow your heart.
With the rebirth of the wrap dress, you've also relaunched, you know, your makeup line. Why did you want to do that? Because
makeup is very important, and makeup is another part of the woman, and it's the secret between the woman and her mirror, and it's all kinds of intimate things, and it's about color, and color is magic.
What have you learned from this whole experience now that it's the second time around? Is it better?
You know, it's funny because what I have learned is that what I knew instinctively, I know now by experience. So it's almost the same thing, but just it has one layer more now, and it's the layer of wisdom and experience, and that's nice.
Living the dream, I would imagine, the expat dream.
I feel more free here than I do in the States.
If you're not happy with what you're doing, you should really think about it and not be afraid of change.
Nice place to live, don't you think?
Not bad.
Perfect, let's eat.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll and food. Today my guest, Anthony Bourdain. And everything is on the table.
I covered my shyness with a megalomania and exhibitionism. Some might even call it psychotic behavior.
I am actually your sous chef today.
Yes, I know, and it's something that I've wanted for years.
The king of chefs.
I'm trying to translate and tell you something about who we are.
Bill Clinton sat for me as his last official portrait as president. I said to him, Mr. President, will you show me the love? One of his advisors actually said, Mr. President, whatever you do, don't show him the love. Larry King comes on and he holds up my picture and he says, this is disgusting.
Hi, I'm Peter Sarsgaard. I've heard from reliable sources that you're the king of smoothies. I want to introduce you to Tabitha. When you came to me, I said, you've got to get rid of gluten.
You were not that nice about it. You were very, very firm. And I was so desperate to feel good that I would have done anything that you told me.